there's a really famous Lebanese journalist. He's being sued now. He's being sued because he insulted Erdogan in Lebanon. This is not a joke. Look at this. The headline reads, "It's not safe to insult Erdogan even from Lebanon. Ankara has successfully pressured Beirut into prosecuting a Lebanese talk show host for criticizing Turkish President Erdogan in his own country." Maybe some of you know Nishan, very, very, very famous journalist and broadcaster in Lebanon. Nishan Der Haroutunian. So he's of Armenian origin, Armenian descent. Let me show you the clip. Here's the clip. This is from June, from last month.
رباح أو رداح القيسي بيقول نشان لبسين اللاجئ يعني أنا أظهر عنصريته ووصف أردوغان بعثماني خبيث ابن مليون خبيث أردوغان والنظام والعثمانيين والأتراك. وإذا إلك عندي أنا هون بالجديد
هلا يعني قتلهم.
إذا أنت بتعتبرني لاجئ هلا أنا لبناني أكثر منك ومش رح برر ومش كل ما دق الكوز بالجرة تجوا تحكوا عن أي لبناني من يعني أصول أرمنية تيجي تقول عنه لاجئ.
حبيبي لا
يا ابن الحرام أنا
حبيبي.
إلي بلبنان أكثر منك وفخور بلبنانيتي أكثر منك. بس بدي أقول شغلة لهيدا الصغير يعني صغير بنفسيته. بدي أقول إنه انهرنا بلبنان على التايم لاين على تويتر كرمال ندافع عن جورج فلويد وعن بلاك ماترز بلاك لايفز ماتر وعن اي كانت بريث. عنا عنصريه بلبنان مقيته تجاه بعضنا، تجاه العمال الاجانب، تجاه عاملات المنازل. عنا عنصريه مقيته تجاه السوري والايراني والسعودي يعني بشكل
بس لازم يعرف.
ترجع بتقول انه لا we're a civilized nation.
بس لازم يعرف اللبناني
عندي حريه مطلقه اوصفه بالخبث لاردوغان والنظام. انا جاي من عندي جذور دبحوا
بلكي مليون ونص ما كفوا.
بس بدي اقول
كمان يعني
بلكي اخبرني ربك
بلكي لازم يكون
محمد بوذياب قلت انه الدم
طبعا
مش في مليون ونص أرمني.
شو طالبين كانوا الأرمن منه؟ طالبين اعتذار يا صديقي، منه طالبين مش طالبين حرب، طالبين اعتذار. شو وين المشكلة؟ الجريء هو اللي بيعتذر، الجبان هو اللي ما بيعتذر.
Everything he said is true. Everything he said is true. You have a real racism, xenophobia issue in Lebanon. I mean, first of all, the way they treat Syrians, especially people who've been displaced by the war, is really just disgusting. They know who they are. I don't want to put any. I don't want to say her name, but she's Syrian, and she's told me, and she's not the only one, that she had to sometimes fake a Lebanese accent to avoid being discriminated against. Now, mind you, they're not too different, Lebanese and Syrian dialect. It's not like, Moroccan and Syrian. That's an enormous difference. But just to give you an idea of how Syrians are discriminated against, that's one thing. But Armenians, okay, they're also facing discrimination. A lot of Armenians came to Lebanon after the genocide in World War I, right? They killed 1.5 million Armenians, okay? I mean, my grandmother's grandmother and my grandmother's grandfather were murdered by the Turks in the genocide. And so my great-grandmother was orphaned and she came to Lebanon as a child. Okay? The fact that you have people in Lebanon using that as an excuse to be racist and say, oh, you're not really Lebanese. What does that even mean? That is ridiculous. That is the dumbest crap I've ever heard. And you know what's funny? I actually never heard that in my life until like the last couple of months. There's one example, and Syrian analysis. He also had some racist cow saying that to him on Twitter. I was like, what? What? Anyway, Nishan has every right to insult Erdogan. I mean, this is a no-brainer. You don't necessarily have to be Armenian to see that the guy is a piece of shit. Okay? He hates women. He hates Syrians. Anyone who says the mildest critique is given harsh prison sentences. He hates social media. I don't know how many times he's tried to ban social media completely. The guy is a nut job. Okay? He thinks that he's the next sultan. He thinks he's going to resurrect the Ottoman Empire. You know, he's funding terrorists in Syria. He's sending some of them over to Libya. He's trying to provoke Armenia and Azerbaijan into a war now. He has very well-known ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. He continues to deny the Armenian genocide to this day. And when he met with Ilhan Omar in the States, that's probably the reason why she voted against the resolution to recognize the Armenian genocide. He is a religious bigot and an extremist through and through. He is a dangerous tyrant. All right? And that's putting it mildly. And by the way, what's funny is you can see in this clip, there's also the former Lebanese Prime Minister, William Wahab. There's an old clip of him where you probably know this meme. It's real. He goes like, let's begin with Erdogan, this watermelon seller. خلينا نبلش مع Erdogan هالبياع البطيخ. Man, I mean, I'm speechless. What the fuck is wrong with the Lebanese government? Are they on crack? They're suing him because he insulted Erdogan. What? I'm at complete liberty to call Erdogan and his regime obnoxious. That is like one of the mildest insults I've ever heard. And they're taking him to court over this. Criticizing Turkey's famously thin-skinned president, Erdogan, is a risky business. Yes, it is. More than 100,000 people have been investigated, and at least 30,000 others have been prosecuted for insulting the president. The crime carries a penalty of at least 4 years in prison. They have prosecuted tons of people in absentia. I'm not kidding. You have a court, they're like, oh, you said something bad about Erdogan, you made a joke, or you insulted him, we're sentencing you to 2 years in jail in absentia. Who the fuck are you? Fuck you. This is outrageous. This is outrageous. Now an ethnic Armenian Lebanese show host, Nishan, is to appear in court on October 8th on similar charges, albeit in Lebanon, following pressure by Ankara on Lebanese authorities, in a further sign of how Turkey's domestic fault lines are spilling beyond its borders and how Erdogan's government is exploiting the divides to shore up support. Nishan, the host of a popular live program on Lebanon's Al Jadid TV, will face charges of quote-unquote insulting Turkey before the Court of Publications Chamber in Beirut. This is what he said: I am at complete liberty to call Erdogan and his regime obnoxious. 1.5 million Armenians were killed. He was referring to the slaughter of Ottoman Armenians in 1915, a massacre that for all of Turkey's ferocious rebuttals is widely acknowledged as one of the earliest genocides of the 20th century. Lebanon's estimated 150,000 ethnic Armenians are mostly descended from survivors of the genocide. The Turkish embassy sent a formal note of protest to the Lebanese Foreign Ministry, saying Nishan had exceeded the limits of free expression and demanded that the Lebanese media display the requisite respect for Turkey's president and people. The ministry lobbed the ball into the Information Ministry's court, saying that when professional ethics are overstepped and relations with foreign countries based on common interest are negatively impacted, steps in keeping with the relevant laws need to be taken. A giant platitude salad of verbal diarrhea. Prosecutors then accepted a criminal complaint filed by a local lawyer against Nishan for insulting Turkey. Now look at this, man. Quote, that the Turkish government is attempting to export its policies of suppression and silencing to other countries is not new. Muradian's an Armenian name. What is new, Moradian told Al Monitor, is the zeal with which this is being pursued in Lebanon in recent months at a time when the Lebanese people are facing a severe economic and political crisis and battling a pandemic. A century ago, the Ottoman Turkish state implemented a policy of exclusion and genocide against its own Armenian citizens. Today, Erdogan's government is trying to label Armenians as the other in Lebanon. Once again, like I've told you guys many times before, 400 years of occupation, right? 16th century to 1918. Listen, man, this is some concerning stuff. I've heard cases like this all the time, but you know what's worrisome is that Lebanon's government is complying. What is wrong with these people? What is this madness? For those of you who don't know, Nishan is extremely famous. I'm telling you, this guy is one of the most famous journalists and presenters in Lebanon. And not just Lebanon, I mean, in the Levant. And they're going after him for a milquetoast comment like that. What the fuck? And you know what's really crazy? Brony, my cousin, who's been on the show many times, he told me, because he was living in Lebanon for a while, he told me there are people, there's a tiny group of people, but nonetheless, they exist in Lebanon who want to be under Ottoman rule again. They want a revival of the Ottoman Empire. I never heard such garbage in my life. And you'll hear them repeating the same kind of shit that you hear from a lot of genocide deniers. They say, like, it's so funny, they can't choose. They either say, oh, the genocide never happened, and if it did happen, Armenians deserved it. What? Man, these people are so sick in the head. Like, they really believe this stuff. What kind of racist shit is that? What does that have to do with anything? Shut your goblin mouth. God, I can't believe this ignorance. I swear I never seen nothing like this. And this is scary, man. This is scary. You know, the Turkish government, Erdogan, well, they will come after you even outside Turkey. And if your government is treacherous and pussy whipped, they'll comply. Fuck Erdogan, all right? That guy is nothing but a cockroach and a watermelon seller. No, I'm serious. Fuck that dude. He is a terrorist piece of shit. I mean, besides this, we know what kind of role he's playing in Syria. We know that he is actively funding militias that have been ethnically cleansing Assyrians, Kurds, Christians in northern Syria. We know that he's been funding all these jihadists that are now holed up inside of Idlib. The fact that he even has the conventional armed forces of Turkey inside Syria is a violation of Syrian sovereignty. He's a piece of shit. And we know for a fact that he's playing an active role in the Libyan war, trying to steal their oil and land and sending rebels over there. I mean, just, he's on a power trip. He thinks he's like going to be the revival of the Ottoman Empire. What a disgusting human being. The Lebanese government is on crack. Like, you guys remember we covered the protest. I think they have enough issues to deal with, much bigger, more pressing issues to deal with than prosecuting a journalist for insulting Erdogan. Like, what a waste of time and everyone's energy and attention. God, that shit would never be allowed to happen in Syria. Never. But apparently Lebanese government, they want to be owned by Turkey. So, I mean, I don't know.